Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another day of the LCK Summer 2019. I'm Valdez. With me is Papa Smithy. It's been a while. You're back. I know you got to cast with Max yesterday. I was very jealous, but now you and I get to join forces once again for the first time in a long time for a amazing day of matches. Two really big bangers today, Papa.
Absolutely, and they're both about playoffs, and it feels like every single minute of the broadcast will be thinking about what it means going forward for our top 5 teams in Korea, because apart from SKT, this race for Worlds, for LCK Summer is super open. We actually had the same predictions. We have Griffin second and then SANDBOX third, and SANDBOX need to win games like this against an Afreeca lineup who we know that on their day can beat the other 9 teams but can also lose to the other 9 teams. I think we're probably shared in thinking that SANDBOX are the reliable team and that they'll be able to reliably maybe grind out some victories, but it's certainly not guaranteed, and it needs to start with something today.
It definitely does, and, you know, SANDBOX, as you mentioned, reliable, but we'll have to wait and see what kind of Afreeca does show up today, because they're also fighting for just a spot in the playoffs. You can see that SANDBOX currently 1 game ahead on them. They have the extra win. Afreeca here, a very important matchup. There's not that much time left in the regular season. It's 2 more weeks, basically, less than that now after yesterday, and it's so competitive at the top.
It's ridiculous. We had 4 teams at the end being 13 and 5 a year ago in summer, and somehow we're closer because right now, Griffin are effectively the same as Damwon if they win the next 2 games, so we could be all at a logjam just for top 5, let alone for the order. And remember, in Korea, every single match above 4th, every single finish above 4th, you skip a best of 3, then you skip best of 5s, then you're seeded into the final. The gauntlet is so punishing. It's based on your regular season performance. So these are the proverbial 6-point games, if you're a Premier League fan, where you separate yourself from another fellow contender. This is not top team versus relegations.
Yeah, absolutely, and we're getting into it a little bit here. We do have some big matchups, obviously the jungle matchup mentioned, but even the top lane going to be pretty easy, interesting rather. Kiin up against Summit, the former protege when they were both on Afreeca. Summit moving over and finding a great spot here on SANDBOX. Taking another look here at some stats as well. You can see that gold lead at 15. Afreeca definitely like to get ahead early.
23 times they have had the gold lead at 15. Notice that is higher than SANDBOX, despite the fact that Afreeca's record is lower. It makes sense. This is a team of mechanical geniuses, so it's going to be about the early game mechanics, flexing on your opponents. I think pound for pound, Afreeca have more talented, and of course that's an inverted commas thing, because talent when it comes to mechanics is always debatable, but they're really good at clicking their buttons. Valdez, and top lane matchup's going to be a really fun one. It's the protege versus the master in Summit versus Kiin.
Exactly, going to be a pretty huge one. I feel like Summit is currently doing a bit better in better form right now, but Kiin, you never know what he will do. The guy is definitely a god of the top lane, so lots of fun stuff to look at. We're taking a look at SKT versus Afreeca. Afreeca obviously struggling against what everybody is calling currently the best team in Korea once again in SKT.
I think the debate has probably ended on that one, but there's still, of course, matches to be played. We'll look over the highlights of SANDBOX's last game, 2-0 against Kingzone, who are definitely in the midst of their big struggle phase before they won yesterday. SANDBOX just too good on the day, and I really am interested to see how they close out the season, because if you remember last season, they were a part of a big 3 with Griffin and SKT, but they really fell away when it mattered at the end of the season and went on to finish 5th because they couldn't even beat Damwon Gaming in the wildcard match. They ended 4th overall and then lost the wildcard to be 5th when it comes into the playoffs calculations, so they cannot afford to wane in these 2 weeks where your postseason is made or your postseason chances could also be broken.
Curious to see where they put it, and it is going to be in the top lane. Kiin up against Summit, as we mentioned before.
That's a lot of firsts and seconds.
I mean, I've been saying the Summit's on great form right now. You can see what you want about the natural skill or, you know, which one should be rated higher overall on the year, but I feel like Summit coming into this one, surprisingly, might be the favored person up in the top lane. Again, we'll have to wait and see where Kiin is in terms of his form, but we can see right here with the stats in front of us that Summit has had quite the summer season.
I just don't think there's going to be much to separate either these two players or these two teams. They're both top teams in Korea. Afreeca on the left, we'll introduce them first. They roll in. I think they should be confident. Yes, they lost to SKT, but right now it feels like that will be all the other 9 teams around the Rift. So, how will they perform on the day? How have they come together on patch 9.15? Not a lot of changes, honestly. You know, we skim the notes and there's some small things that have changed. I think Afreeca will try to recreate things, and can Nofe address the very obvious gaps in the playbook that is actually very impressive outside of kind of their expected favorites.
It's definitely crunch time right now for every team here that is at the top of the ladder in the LCK.
And who do we have that are proven performers in crunch in the LCK? SKT is there. Griffin is not, clearly.
Yeah.
Kings and Dragon X, probably not. It feels like there's SKT, arguably Genji when it comes to summer play, and then everyone else is kind of around. Like, how good is SANDBOX when Worlds is on the line? We don't have any data. This is the first time they've actually been competing for Worlds. They were not in the LCK 1 year ago. Afreeca have a lot of young players, so the org reputation doesn't really apply there. So definitely some names are going to be cemented, some spots are going to be cemented today. But the other side of that coin is the playoffs might be far away from the loser of today's match.
Yeah, and the fun thing is that once we do get down to the end of summer, it just gets every single game, every single match even gets to a point where you're there's so much on the line. You have to play your hearts out, and you could be making history for your team if you do just that one extra play to get your team over the line. So, as you mentioned, pressure's on for all these young players on both of these lineups.
I mean, look at last year. Who of this match was in LCK? Aiming, Ucal, Kiin, nobody else. The rest of the players. Ghost was there, but probably wants to forget those days.
Yeah.
So 4 out of 10 were involved in the LCK last year. A lot has changed. SANDBOX building names, but again, haven't gone international. Didn't make Rift Rivals. Had to watch on as Dumb1, who beat them in the wildcard match, became the darlings of Korea and actually bringing that title back to Korea. Speaking of back to Korea, Nofe made his triumphant return this year. A spring to forget, but summer season is when you need to blossom. The young players are starting to come together. Ucal in the mid lane has definitely been able to contribute to this uptick. Gonna be a fun one. It is also Coach Comet against his old organization. Took them to Worlds last year alongside Zeph.
So let's get down to it. We got pick ban here for game number 1. Looks like SANDBOX is actually going to be here on the red side. You could argue that could be good for a counter pick up into the top lane, but I feel like both of these guys very good at Jace. We'll see if that gets targeted here in the bans.
And I'm always interested to see which teams actually hold targeted bans and which teams ban for comp, because there's definitely picks that stick out that aren't necessarily as overlapping. OnFleek, for example, is a huge Xin Zhao fanatic. It's his most played at 8 picks so far in summer, and it's really not that prioritized by other junglers around the Rift. Dread's played 4 games himself, and a 50% win rate there, but 6-2 is OnFleek. And right now, feels like the targeted bans aren't as plentiful. You do notice, though, that there is a Jace ban from SANDBOX. Jace priority was pretty low last week, then we saw a couple rolling in as the week went on. Could potentially mean something for the Kennen priority, as the Aatrox going to be first overall pick, almost certainly the Kiin.
Saw a big smile on his face. That's generally a telling sign as to who that pick is going to go for. You'll notice the Akali ban as well. We did just see in the replays that did have a pretty nice game of Akali recently, so maybe another targeted one towards him. They're hovering the Xayah here, perhaps considering Xayah Rakan coming into this one.
And the last time these two teams faced, it was a 2-1 victory, all blue side victories for SANDBOX. Because of the way the schedule works, Afreeca will be on blue side twice if we play 3 times in the second round robin. And it was the flex pick top lane Sejuani in game number 1 that was able to surprise and cause some wonderment. Summit was good in that particular series. The Zyrakan priority way higher in a recent memory than when I was here 2 weeks ago, so return to the Lovers duo does also force Afreeca to show more about their draft before you actually have to start really thinking about counter picks and things like that for SANDBOX.
Does give Afreeca an option of knowing exactly what they're going up against into the bottom side, so they could just go ahead and
Nautilus could
pick
be
something
the support
they're
here. That would be Senan's go-to. Not as strong in the 2v2 against the Rakan. Rakan counter picks, they're pretty well known. Morgana's probably the most famous one. You can consider Braum if you want to shorten the feathers and try to make things happen. But speaking of those particular picks, we talked about the Xinjiao for OnFleek. Ucal, famously a one-trick Taliyah player when he was climbing. One of the reasons that some pro players in the LCK, when I asked them about Ucal, they said, well, don't really know. Outside of his Taliyah, I don't respect his other picks. Well, his Taliyah so far, just like that Xinjiao, 6-2. And while it's a flex pick for Dread, and we saw Canyon jump on the jungle Taliyah yesterday, this could very much be mid lane pick for Ucal.
Taliyah, very fun. I'm a big fan, obviously.
You're a resident expert.
Yeah, it's something that I've kind of one-tricked or two-tricked with something else, or just done that in the past. And yeah, we got Wabam back. It's possible. We got Jarvan in our first game to welcome back this Valdez Papa cast. So.
I heard mixed stories on whether you truly honored your Wabam commitment last week while I was gone. When Pop's not watching, apparently you stopped Wabamming.
Well, I didn't have my Papa to, crack the whip if need be. But thankfully you're back to make sure that I'm on point today with that. I was trying to honor it, but I forgot the one time that the Jarvan did come out. But not today. As
speaking of not today,
yeah,
we're gonna see some coverage bans for Kiin on this top lane Aatrox, at least what they are posturing towards in this particular draft. Elise ban coming out here too, so trying to remove some of Dread's aggressive picks that he likes to go to. Usually defaults to Lee Sin, and I've been talking to a lot of analysts who feel like Lee Sin priority, even though the buff was quite small, it's just another one of those underscores of why not Lee Sin. So could definitely be a fallback here if he's not going to be jumping onto the Taliyah jungle. SANDBOX themselves might be putting out a flex pick here. Silas can go top and mid lane, but the magic damage shield not so useful against Aatrox. And what about the LeBlanc late game buffs? Will Dove go there? He does. Okay.
Yeah. Giving credit to the Taliyah mid lane. Just saying we would like to take that matchup if possible, as hovering the Camille for a second, but then the Lee Sin that was very expected does come through.
Hey,
and this is the question. Yeah.
This would be fun to see. Senan's smiling. But he's a Nautilus one-trick, as we know. Yeah. Come on, Senan, do the Leona. Make us a believer. That said, we saw his Alistar, and then we decided we didn't ever want to see that again. So,
yeah.
You need the crowd control, and Senan says, well, this is the only champion I can play. And he's pretty good at it. So we'll take his word on the Nautilus, one of the most common support picks, the Supportless. Cannon open. AD Cannon. Talking about it from Kiin. Summit can also go down that route. You have a lot of different priority options into Aatrox left available. You're wondering how much Kennen he's played this season. It's actually not been a big pick for the side of SANDBOX. Just a couple of picks, 1-1, KDA not wonderful, but it is a way to allow them to play 1-3-1, and that is certainly what they're setting up in this draft. They'll have some team fight options, that's for sure, and it will be Ucal roaming around on the Taliyah. Feels like you'll be a happy man this week, Valdez, because between the jungle Taliyah we saw yesterday and the mid lane Taliyah here, I think all the Taliyah aficionados are all in once more.
No doubt. They're all coming back. Taliyah, that high amount of burst damage you can get, especially once you get your items online, is pretty incredible. You were mentioning some win rates. You noticed the Zyrakan picked very early for the side of SANDBOX. Ghost is currently 5-0. On Xayah.
That's a good win rate.
He's trying to really play into his, most winning champion, no doubt. So we'll see if he can actually have a big pop-off performance in this game.
And it's a very interesting kind of time to pick Xayah, because when we start running through the comps, do notice it is hella pick comp versus hella pick comp. So Xayah's ultimate here is going to have to be baited out to make the plays happen. We're all drifting around the killer instinct value. They have people that can open it up in every single lane. Very clear what Afreeca want to do, and I actually really like Afreeca's draft when it comes to a pick comp. Xayah's only got one ult button, and she's certainly going to have to be very, very sure of when she picks it, but the pick comp is definitely on both sides. So much burst damage. Whoever has vision control, you are so scared to face check anything because you die and just poof into dust out of nowhere.
Lots of damage on both sides, and hopefully a lot of action here in game number 1. But let's hop onto the Rift right now and find out how this one will go.
Valdez, there is so many people in Lol Park. I cannot see an empty seat, and that's at 5:08 p.m. Usually it takes the first game to fill in, but I was taken aback by just the cheer before we even got each team's cheers. And speaking of cheers, we might even have some fights, as we already see Afreeca posturing for an invade.
Some level 1 fighting here, perhaps, for Papa Smithy. Not going to happen, though, as we're just invading. Getting vision down.
It's the end of summer. It's the big matches before playoffs start. It's also a lot of university students are finished their exams. So I think people are just hyped about Korean League of Legends, and I tend to side with those people, Valdez.
Yeah, this is the best time of year, of course. Once we get to the end of it and everything starts to make a difference and matter. You know, you feel like the games actually do play a big part into it. You know, we'll get into Gauntlet and then of course eventually Worlds and see how that goes down, as we are actually having a bit of an invade here onto the blue buff by Afreeca. The three of them going to steal this one away.
A lot of information here. You'll notice there's a blue ward on their own blue buff, so very interested in tracking pathing. Seems like Jarvan very likely to run straight to the enemy blue because that's where his vision lies. He can't walk where they don't have red wards, so has to go to the enemy blue. So for now it's vertical jungling. Remember, if you get level 2 here, you can do pretty big burst damage, just skilling the W and then popping that plasma passive. So a lot of pressure onto Xayah Rakan, not often something we can say. 8-0 if you add the Rakan together. And
undefeated bot lane.
That is some impressive statistics. Don't think of Joker as a native Rakan player, because it's a champion where you choose the wrong engage, you blow up really fast. They're looking to actually punish OnFleek here with the ward.
Boy. Well, he is going to smite for the extra health, but can he get out of here? He's going down.
He's on cooldown for a couple of seconds.
They're going to spot him now here, but he's on a ward. This guy in a lot of trouble as he's going to try to flash the wall. Gets over, but it doesn't matter, as the Q did land in first blood, as easy as that.
And I love it when a plan comes together, and warding their own blue was the reason that was possible. Felt really like a no-face special straight out of the Rocks 2016 playbook, you know, very Peanut-esque in how Dread approached the level 1, how the team was ready for it. Really nicely done, and that definitely puts a dampener on OnFleek, but importantly for OnFleek, he holds on to his flash, so he still has gank potential. Jarvan from level 2 onwards can still try to make something happen in lanes.
And he is going to be looking to fight here, has that Conqueror as his rune. Same for the Lee Sin, actually. So coming down here, Dread is trying to read the rotation, and already, let's see how this goes. Should be a 4-on-3, but the first jump going the way of Afreeca, but we got LeBlanc coming down here. Dove not quite on time, though, so that little roam timing at level 4, a bit cheeky, is not going to work out.
Well, I got a cheeky grin on my face because we're seeing a lot of good, smart, aggressive plays being shadowed by more aggressive counter ganks. So a lot of action being threatened in the early game phase. Get the confirmations to press the attack cannon. In Korea, I think we've had one AP cannon in 2 weeks, so we definitely default there, and had a lot of fun discussions with EU pros when I was over in the LEC, telling me they just, EU teams can't work out the AD cannon and get value out of it. Definitely Summit and Kiin are 2 people we would defer to that pick, as Ucal, speaking of roaming, doing his best Dove impression.
He's going to be spotted here pretty early, and unless that seismic shove is godly, he's going to get the knock up here, waiting for that flash, but he's able to get out of range of the Talia W, so is actually going to be just fine, as we did have a nice trade down here on the bottom side by Ghost and Joker.
And this is important. Look at the summoners here. Aiming doesn't have teleport, so he's gone heal for laning phase. That's a lot of respect. Expecting a lot of ganks from OnFleek, you would assume, to go heal in this lane. We almost always see teleport if you're not outside of kind of a Draven lane or something insane for the 2v2. But does mean he has a heal bait potential, as even the level up health can be relevant in a turret dive scenario.
OnFleek comes in right as the wave crashes, clears out the ward they just placed. This lane, the undefeated bot lane we talked about at Ghost and Joker, looking to add some more stats to pad them up here as they have a great start in this game.
So, Afreeca, very little priority in the bot side. What does that mean for Infernal Drake? Potentially good things for SANDBOX. As the trades continue here. This has always struck me as a lane that is incredibly hard for Talia to interact on if she doesn't have Banshee Veil, and you probably get a Lost Chapter first, but you can still roam Valdez and Ucal straight as we say it, going top lane, trying to make a play on AD Cannon.
Second time too, we got 3-on-1 here. Jarvan and LeBlanc trying to make it to the top lane, but Summit in a lot of trouble. Is going to be Seismic shoved to his death, and LeBlanc not quite able to get here on time. And
it's just fun to see a player who has this intrinsic link with a champion like Ucal does on Talia. We don't get that as much as we used to back in the day. Froggens and Nivea comes to mind, Faker's LeBlanc also. But seeing his shove timings and how long he's willing to hold on to that cooldown, really, really nicely done from Ucal. Good roam timing, and LeBlanc this time can't actually shadow. She doesn't have teleport. She's an Ignite LeBlanc for lane.
It's going to be interesting to see how that does play out later on in the game, you know, with the AD Cannon split pusher, generally with the LeBlanc as well. With teleport, you can go 1-3-1 pretty easily, but either way, we're going to take a look here at the gank once again. Pretty straight up 3-on-1.
Kiin, the only ex-teammate there of Summit, who was on the Afreeca Freecs as a sub. There was a great post in spring. You remember the game where Kiin played Vayne and popped off super hard when Afreeca Freecs was in a losing streak, and there's a great post from Summit afterwards saying, why couldn't you play AD carry and I could have played top, it would have all worked out.
Yeah.
It's fun to see there's still some feelings there as OnFleek kind of unfortunately been pretty owned after the level 1, trying to find a way back into this game. He's usually the difference between a SANDBOX won early game and lost early game, so he needs to find some relevance on this Jarvan.
Yeah, after that early game, looks like just based on the CS. He's been going around the jungle, just trying to clear out his camp as fast as possible, but he's not going to be in position for perhaps another blue steal here. It's going to be great. It doesn't give LeBlanc that unlimited harass up against Talia. Makes this lane a lot easier, actually. And we'll even hand that off to Ucal here early, so.
Are you getting some inspiration about this Talia versus LeBlanc matchup? As Summit pops the ultimate, remember, AD Cannon.
Gonna be pulled back in, and Summit, again, doesn't have a splash. He is so dead. Wave goodbye, as that poor little ninja is gonna be put down, as once again, Kiin is going to put down his old friend.
And that's what we were talking about, the master versus the student. Turns out the master's still got some tricks in his book. Puts him into the death chamber. The Cannon's the counter pick. The Cannon's the 1-4 lane. Atos getting the lead in lane. We know that he's pretty damn good at spreading that lead into team fights.
Yeah. And we don't even need to see the replay. I think we can kind of already guess how that happened. Lightning Rush goes down, and then he gets hit by W, and it's over.
The W here is his death. You know, we came in at this part of the play, and it's just so easy. Not even a flash required to pick it up, which is the insult upon injury. Afreeca Freecs are putting SANDBOX into the dumpster. And remember, the last 2 weeks when SANDBOX really started to waver in spring season as well.
Be real careful about that as Dread looking for more action. Joker getting baited into it a bit here. The flash on in! Into the kick Q! And see you later! As Rakan will be going down. Featherstorm is here, as well as that Jarvan trying to trade it back onto the Kai'Sa. But the Kai'Sa will do Kai'Sa things. Presses her buttons, and that's 2 kills now to Afreeca in the bot lane.
Oh, baby, Afreeca Freecs are red hot in the first 9 minutes. Dread open it up, snipes with the Q around a minion. Thank you very much. They're going to turn it into Infernal. Afreeca Freecs, everywhere they go, the Midas touch so far, and they are even further ahead than the 2,500 gold lead suggests.
Bot lane gets ahead in a big way. Top lane is already being dumpstered. Mid with the blue buff, you can see Talia is just totally fine. Everything is going right now, including a 2-0 and 2 jungler, by the way, as Lee Sin will pick up that warrior enchant here at 9.5 minutes. Things are just all in favor of the Freaks tonight.
Take your win rates, take your predictions, and shove them, says Afreeca Freecs. We knew they had the potential, but day on day they can play to deceive. They can look like a rookie squad and then turn it into world's best. Joker goes in, and Dread is in the perfect spot. Kick, and look how close it is to the minion. Insane! As he hits the resonating strike, goes through after the Sonic Wave. And OnFleek comes in, and there's just really no way for him to make a play happen here. Thinks he might be able to take aiming with him, but Killer Instinct's still available. We roll back to lane. Things are looking mighty fine for Afreeca. We like their draft, and the fact they had those reliable openers for the killers to swoop in. And when you see Manamune, it's Q evolve early, it's burst damage. I don't think they have any problems with burst damage on Afreeca's side.
They're going to have a grand old time in this one. The question is, how early can they end it, and can they end it here? They're going to look to accelerate by potentially going for this Rift Herald quite early, as Infernal Drake already taken. Dove trying to make this LeBlanc work and come over the wall here for a bit of a dive.
Looking for an angle. This would have to be a turret dive. Dove's going to reveal himself, though. He backs away.
Yeah. Not really going to work out. And
good read. Afreeca just straight onto the Rift Herald. So now Dove is forced to make a play, and that's where things can get really dodgy with calculations. Speaking of dodgy calculations.
That's why you need that lightning rush. If you get caught in the Aatrox W, you can say goodbye a lot of the time. Had it splash this time around, as Rift Herald will be picked up. Summit, they're going to drop it in this lane where Summit really has no potential. And we are accelerating. We are blasting off into space right now. If we're Afreeca, everything goes right in every lane, including the jungle, and now you're getting plates.
And all top laners know what it feels like to be this Kennen, where you got the 5th pick, counter pick, 4-lane pick that doesn't team fight that well, and you're getting booty blasted in this game by Afreeca Freecs.
It's not often
good.
You bring out that one, I mean, but it's necessary in this game.
This is going to be the sick, no damage Kennen doing nothing unless things change really fast, Valdez.
And you can see what SANDBOX are trying to do. They have to get some kind of win somewhere on the map, and it's just OnFleek awkwardly hanging around the bottom lane. That's Leah's up a level, winning against the LeBlanc in the lane, has her Merc Treads. And it's just really nothing. I feel like OnFleek is lost right now in the jungle. He's like got his blinders on. He's like, where do I even go?
He should go mid lane and just try to get Ucal's flash. That would be nice. That's kind of. But the problem is, it's cleansed to Leah. She can flash. She's got Mercs. He's second to everything because he went for the invade. That early ward that caught him, put him in his place, and then Dread struck gold in multiple lanes. And that's where you just kind of hold up your hands and say, damn, we were outplayed. Really no other way to look at it, as now Kiin's in on the action. Is he even going to get any buffs, Valdez? Feels like everything's being stolen.
Yeah, I mean, if this is solo Q, your Kennen's already AFK in Fountain, and people are spamming jungle difference as LeBlanc is, she's gone AD by this point.
You haven't even been able to say Wabam yet. Has he even ulted?
No, I don't think so. I haven't seen it in the game.
And I want to hear you're a good caster about it. Some would say a great caster on your day, I believe it. I want to hear the range of your Wabams, because some of the Wabam kind of emphasis is going to have to be different when you're this far behind.
I mean, you can't always give it 100%.
Can you give us the ASMR Wabam? Can you give us like some emotion in the Wabam? What's that we missed out on playoffs Wabam?
In the middle of we missed playoffs.
And that might be a future Wabam requirement.
Oh, of course, SANDBOX. You're already giving it to them. As you can see that Ucal is not scared of LeBlanc anymore, right? He even has damage now. He's going straight Ludens. Doesn't really have to go straight to the Banshee this time around. Could still go for it if he wants to with the Blasting Wand, but we'll see how that goes as he's ahead in CS. And now we're roaming, says Senan.
Pretty scary champion with a hook and also targeted CC.
It's a second Infernal, so they're like, we're just going to bring Kiin down and
100 AD done aiming, so he's ready to blow people up.
Yeah. If they get double Infernal, they're just like, they're rolling in it at that point. The gold lead wouldn't be able to really show how far ahead they would be exactly.
If it's solo queue and you see the second Infernal, you're starting that 15-minute surrender vote.
Yeah, we're pretty close. People would say 15 go-go at this point, but let's see what SANDBOX can do, how they are going to try to do this. Again, it's AD Kenan, who doesn't really have items. So no teleport flanks, no nothing, actually, as nobody from SANDBOX gets close to it, and that is a second Inferno going the way of Afreeca.
How about a mountain to back it up? Here is SANDBOX just kind of looking into the ethers and wondering what they did to deserve this. Turns out, we were a bit sleepy at level 1. Afreeca were very active, and that was my favorite thing. Look, the thing is, we talk about 2016 Rocks Tigers a lot because those who watched those games kind of grew that emotional attachment to the kind of band of misfits that didn't have that big org behind them and won the big one. In terms of how they played, you don't really talk about that as much. It's much more emotive language than like, they were an aggressive, assertive team, Peanut known for his counter jungling and for backing up their jungler. And I think Dread, they've had a lot of plans on how to use him here. This has been a very aggressive jungle performance. They also picked a lot of initiators and kind of blew open games pre-30. SKT were always the reactive team. Rocks were the aggressive, proactive team. And that's why when you see Nofe come in with a level 1 plan, empower the jungler everywhere aiming, everywhere that Dread goes, they're finding a lot of backup and making aggressive plays. It does remember the Rocks Tigers in 2016 games, and that's why it's a pleasure to see Afreeca starting to meld into the team that on paper they can definitely become.
And Afreeca has always been an exciting team. Sometimes they come out and they smash a top team and make it look easy. Sometimes they come out against KT and you're like, what's going on, guys?
Remember that Jin Air series? They almost lost that one too.
Well, you know, it's like, did you guys even sleep last night? You know, what's going on? So, very exciting. If they could get more consistent, this would be an incredibly fun team to watch and support. Not saying that they're not already, but definitely some room to improve, but also look fantastic on their day, which turns out to be today. So
you can never have a resident sleeper Afreeca series. They're either gonna wabam or they're gonna just capitulate. You know, that's the fun thing about them, and they're always learning and getting better, which is fun to track. We're in playoff season now. Spring was kind of a wash, like they didn't really learn much there. They didn't really settle on a roster, but summer roster can do a lot of different things, that's for sure. Hasn't been action recently, but that's because a lot of easy objectives already claimed for Afreeca. Early item completions are done as well. We're just waiting for the what's next moment. No deep ward for Aatrox to teleport on, as he's got a very nice cavalcade like this.
Yeah, they're just looking to put on pressure and take objectives where they can. Obviously, Talia in the mid lane can set down the walls, just threaten getting to the fight before anybody else. Summit, who got bullied very early on, is just sadly farming up in the top lane, whereas Kiin is getting first rotation, looking for opportunities.
Because Kenan's not even good at dealing with minions that are pushed into him in an Inotar, right? He doesn't have great instant wave clear. He doesn't get to roll through with his AP and W max like he would do on the AP build, so he's way further behind than 18 CS down 0-2-0 suggests, and it doesn't suggest very good things, Valdez, so he's really very much in the dumpster here when it comes to finding a way back into this game. It kind of has to be Afreeca heavily botch a team fight, and Summit stays in lane and gets like a turret and a half. Like, that's going to be the wins. He will not get the wins in the grouping, you would have to imagine.
You see SANDBOX trying to set up a little thing here, but we got 4 members of, okay, there's the big knockup, trying to go for the Wombo here. We got the TP coming in as well. This might be SANDBOX's best chance, but Ghost already taking a bunch of damage. Here's AD Kenan, not able to do much, and nobody on Afreeca is dying, as now it's their turn to clap them back, as they will be able to pick up that 1 kill to start here. As, man, SANDBOX really threw everything at the wall, but nothing was sticking in that
Because it was the perfect engage, but it was 6,000 gold behind. Their inferior tools just don't actually get any real damage onto Afreeca, so while Afreeca's positioning there, and SANDBOX's opening was great. Watching here, he's going for the highlight play.
Down
Montage time.
He doesn't have this one. The kick comes in, and the red buff is going to take him down as one-on-one Dread will put Dove down.
Stick it straight on your YouTube channel, feeling great. Every time you can take down a LeBlanc 100-0. Jungle players will rejoice. Freaking push up top lane. They're going to get a turret bot lane. Even though it all started with SANDBOX's good play, doesn't come together.
This is not the game one I was expecting. I expected some fun action back and forth. SANDBOX, no stranger to that action as well. Senan, he's gonna die anyway, so we're gonna kind of spare you the blushes of the Dreads line. But either way, they get the pick into Mountain Drake, and can they do anything better right now, guys? They are on perfect game pace here up against SANDBOX Gaming.
Yeah, it's 8-0 in terms of the kill score at the top of the screen. Kind of feels like the equivalent of a football match that's 8-0 at this present time. Even when SANDBOX get the 4-on-1 against one defender and a goalie, they still can't score a goal. Here's the replay. The whispered wabam moment, it felt like, on this one.
Yeah.
This is exactly what you want as SANDBOX, right? They also have pick champions. Let's make it work. We'll get there first. Freak is out of position, and yeah, watch on the play. They just can't get anything done.
Wabam.
Quite.
That's all I got. There's no energy in that one. I had no feeling. As
This had some feeling.
This is what we wanted to see.
I love the IG thing that's just in the screen because of the rookie skin that Dove is working on. Challenging Smite, put down, no challenge required for Dread. He's definitely met it. He's ready for his MVP vote at this point.
He picked up another kill onto the Recon as well, so 4-0 and 3.
Who's flanking who?
Ucal's like, I smell something nearby, but I don't really know.
Who is flanking who?
What it is. As it turns out it's a LeBlanc, but they haven't quite seen her yet.
They don't know. They don't know about Joker and his buddy.
And now SANDBOX are just really split up. As, okay, we're trying to assassinate Aiming here. Might just be able to do that, but they don't quite have the damage as Aiming's going in now. He's going to pick up the Wum. The Wabam does come in as OnFleek will get the kill, but that's going to be it. It will be a 3-for-1, including the jungler here for Afreeca.
And that's the best you're going to get as SANDBOX. You're going to lose the Baron for it as well. The perfect game averted, but I think Afreeca Freecs will be just fine with that. Mountain, double Inferno, 80 cannon, slowly sauntering his way to the Baron. He wants to be there to check for signs of life, but Summit knows it's going down. Kiin continues to torment his previous substitute. Are they going to wait for Aiming? Oh, that's so greedy! Come on, Afreeca.
Yeah.
Seriously, I love this observing. Have a back.
There it is. It's a nice little gift to the one guy that's died in this game. As you can see, what SANDBOX were trying to do on this play.
And it's one of those things where, you know, on a VOD review, the coach is like, I like what you were doing, it just doesn't matter anymore, because you're paying for the sins of the early game, the level 1, where the warding advantage got them the kill onto OnFleek. OnFleek, no pressure in this game, no true wabams in this particular one, and Kiin just running at an 80 carry and forcing flash. That's a pretty cool story.
Full health. And, yeah, just, he's got much bigger stacks of cash in his pockets. As we'll actually see the difference here is 2,000 gold in favor of Kiin over Ghost.
Afreeca feels like standard millionaires as we understand it, and SANDBOX are Korean millionaires. In case you guys know, $1 million won here is about $1,000.
Yeah.
So it's not the $1 million that you're used to. So
I'm a million won heir.
yeah, they're the wrong type of millionaires, it feels like, for SANDBOX right now.
Currency not quite as strong, but yeah, you need to get to something like what is it? It's like 100 millionaire, or something like that. A billionaire makes you a millionaire.
I've always wanted to be a millionaire. Visiting Korea is a good way to inflate your ego for a little bit.
Yeah. It's like the prize money. It's like, oh my god, $10 million.
Sadly not.
Good Twitch chat moments.
Oh yeah, and when FLICKR gets a donation, like, whoa, $10,000 donation?
Even just the $1 ones that barely make a sound.
$1,000?
Yeah.
Wow. Can't really talk about this game because it's just mean.
Yeah.
SANDBOX, one of our contenders. Remember, this is not KT Ulster versus SKT. This is very much two top teams, and Afreeca's not really allowing SANDBOX to look like one. Base going to be broken in 23.
It's just Afreeca manhandling them. And we're going for desperation mode as trying to get on top of Kiin there. But not going to work out, of course. It's 11-1. We're pushing this one in here. A minute 15 still left over onto that Baron buff.
Even when you see those long range Prey Seekers, Void Seekers, Void Seekers, you wonder, is he going to take that one? Just dive in there, Suicide Bomb on this particular Kai'Sa. It's something you can do. You can just dive in if you think your team's going to back you up. And I see a lot of flashes up, so there's a lot of potential here. Dread's waiting for his next montage moment.
Well, he missed that one as in goes Senan. He's going to be the big boy in the front line. Not going to let anybody take any damage here. As in goes Dread. Well, bam, happens, but it's really in favor of Dread this time. As Summit now trying to get into the back line. No Zonias, of course. He's aiding Kennen. As, wow, just getting dunked here in the back line by Kiin as well. As you can say, see you later, Joker is going to have to flash away from that one as Afreeca looking to end this one extremely early at about 25 minutes, not wasting any time. Really bringing it to SANDBOX here in game number 1 and making it look real easy.
We're on the Afreeca side of LoL Park, and their fans are hyped by what was the ceiling, or at least starting to show us the ceiling of what Afreeca Freecs could become. Team full of mechanical players starting to finally learn their straps in competitive play about a year into their genesis under their coach Nofe. Remember, in spring, it was much more of a collaborative approach with Afreeca's coaching. In summer, I Love Uve out, StarCraft 1 influences out, and Nofe, famous for his Rocks Tigers days, and EDG over in the LPL. And you're starting to see the Nofe influences come out as early as level 1 here. Afreeca had a plan, they executed it with aplomb. And when they are in full flight, they are a pleasure to watch.
Yeah, we get the zoom in on Kiin and then OnFleek. As I was saying it pretty early on, the jungle difference might have been the thing you would spam in solo queue if this game started off this way. As it was just great overall team performance and preparation, right? You talked about the ward. They scouted him out early, set up the quote-unquote vertical jungling, but then punished him for staying too long in the top side jungle. And from there, the Jarvan was pretty useless. And nothing, I mean, the blue buff even stolen away from LeBlanc and all the great ganks. It was just one thing after another, too many to list.
At the end of the day, if you're a really good solo queue player, what are you really good at doing? Playing from ahead. How do you close out a game? How do you flex on your opponent? Afreeca Freecs are great at that. It's when you put them behind and they start to get strangled out that they make a desperation play and try to get back in. Because guess what? In solo queue, if you're behind, you kind of queue up for the next game, right? You put out the surrender vote. That's kind of the reality of Afreeca. So if they make it a really robust early game again and again, they're going to win way more games than they lose. As SANDBOX were really just blown apart by an Afreeca blitz in the early game. It was really impressive from them.
Well,
global fans also don't know who Jockey is.
So
no thoughts there.
Not sure. Maybe it was that guy sitting in the crowd. Shout out to you guys. Hope you have the English headsets to listen in, as it was 2 kills and 1 tower in the end. That was it for the side of SANDBOX. Damage numbers were okay, but that doesn't really tell any of the story of this game, as they are really going to have to go into the drawing board and just figure out how did they get this demolished. Not even, just in the draft, but in the game, just everything seemed to be Afreeca favor that time around.
Yeah, the draft could have worked, it just didn't. At the end of the day, Afreeca were too good in the early game, and the AD cannon was hardly a counter pick very quickly, so we're going to get ready to queue up game number 2. Really easy on the eyes, game number 1. I hope we get up to 6 games of League of Legends like that, because that sort of League of Legends holds up in an international context, not just slowly grinding out a team in Korea.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun as well to cast and to watch. Just that much action. Just going hard was Afreeca, and they came out with the message that they are the team to look out for. Perhaps not SANDBOX, but we'll have to wait and see what happens after this commercial break.
옆자리 라칸 옆자리.
나 건다 이거. 걸었어. 나 가는.
야 라칸 노공이야 라칸. 가만다 야 르블랑. 카르반. 르블랑 반피. 라인. 타워. 야 타워부터 타워.
야 볼게 이거 컴백 받았어.
캐넨 높을. 캐넨.
야 르블랑 왼쪽 자리야.
나 잡았어.
끝내자. 간다. 이대로 가봐. 이대로 가면 끝나.
라칸 높을. 우리 진혁이가 미신을 쳤다래.
뭐야? 그만.
나이스.